Welcome to a new series of this Awaken podcast, where I, Corey Sheik, will be sharing personal contemplations, songs, and guided healing meditations as we journey through the template of the eternal together. Please do enjoy. This flow of conversation is simply with myself, to myself, and God's source in all the space in between. I've made it an effort over the past many years to be journaling within journals of more journaling and more journals. And so the sharing in this way, and as it's been many times as I've shared over the years, is simply this, a live journal. And so this is no different, and this message here is simply a clear communication of that. And so take everything with a grain of salt, leave everything there as simply Corey's reflections with himself. And then maybe if there's things that resonate or spark or reveal deeper clarity within you, or things that you'd also like to deepen in your own reflection and practice, and most importantly, application, trial and error, or maybe just trial, or maybe just error, who knows, then that is up to you. And so in this agreement that we have together is just simply a sharing of words, a listening, a resting within, and a participation together as we participate in this journey. And so enjoy it for what it is. If love becomes the primary mover of all things, in the sense that how is this of the greatest love for all, the greatest love for the self, the greatest love for source, for the other, for the world, for all things, all creations, how is every action a support, a love, a living of virtue? Is every action this? If this is the movement, then all forms of creation can be a service of source to itself, source as source, co-creating through this individuation, which we call ourselves. So there's no one particular desire that is not worthy of action or movement, because through this lens, all desires will be a harmonized expression of themselves. For instance, we can eat food in a joyful and loving manner rather than a gluttonous or guilt-filled manner. Likewise, we can engage in sexual interactions in a similar comparison, or the interactions with money, value exchange, contract agreement. We can engage in sports, forms of exercise, movement of the body, in interactions in business and artistry, creative expression, music, in pretty much every endeavor, every possible desire within this human realm. It can be both expressed in an imbalanced way or a balanced way. in a manner of fear, in a manner of all the things that come with fear, and our expressions of that polarity, or coming to the harmonized truth of the purity of ourselves, being this pure love, this complete joy, this mountain-like peace, and to express that through the movements of all of these things naturally are balanced. And at a certain point, some of them may fall away or transform, but this is not of concern, because that could take an eternity, and we need not wait for eternity to unfold for us to experience the divine love in which we are. And so we come to know this truly. We come to see this, come to be with this, exist as this. This is the supreme way. This is the way. And it is nothing that can truly be described. None of these words actually grasp what this is. They are only glimpses of it. They are pointers. And so when we come to know this as ourselves, then we come to know ourselves truly. And this is what all teachings point to in the most advanced of ways. In the most in-depth of spiritual science, they will all simply point to this. And so if this is lived, this ultimate desire, this movement of the ultimate desire within all things, the ultimate devotion, the ultimate love, the divine love, as the prime mover, the prime sensation, the prime expression, then all things are transformed. All movements of life are transformed. Every thought, word, feeling, action. It is all transformed. And so this is what simplifies all, because there's nothing left but this love. And so if we are come to see that all movements of ourselves are this expression only of this, then what is left? What is left? There is nothing left. It is just a perpetual eternal movement of this, and a perpetual eternal reminder and a lesson of this, because within the movements of all, we come to see this again and again and again. And it reminds us eternally that everything is only this, and nothing actually can be achieved but this. It is the supreme love, the divine love of God's source. And yet, in truth, none of these words actually encapsulate what's being spoken. It's just this. And it's here, and it's here, and it's here. And it's only ever been here, and only ever will be here. Nothing can make it greater or less than, better or worse. It can't be higher or lower, here or there, this or that. It's all of those things, and yet none of those things. And so it can't be grasped. There's nothing that can grasp it. There's nothing that can touch it truly. And so when this is known, this is known within all things. It is expressed within all things. And it uproots only the truth. All falsehood is dissolved with this. And so we remember, we realize, and we love. I'm observing here the most subtle dimensions of tendencies in which the narcissistic mind or the egoic mind looks to perpetuate itself, looks to gather attention, and looks to be seen in the most addictive of ways. In so many ways, this is what is reflected in the social media realms, and how it is one of the more dangerous forms of addiction in the form of the hits of attention, the hits of extreme level narcissistic or egoic perpetuation, where one is constantly reinforced by everything that is done through everything that is reflected in a rapid pace within the realms of social media. But of course, this is no different than the walking realm, the living life, what one may call the real life. In truth, it is all a reflection of itself, because it's all a manifestation of source, and no matter where it comes from, it's still coming from the same place. And so often we can look to project our own egoic tendencies upon the culprit or the devil that is now in the form of technology, social media, this and that. But in truth, it all comes back to ourselves, because it is us that's the prime mover of all things and all movements, this original source in which sparks and gives way to all. And so when we come to take an honest look at this core desire to be seen and in truth to see, and potentially both simultaneously, where only this remains, this meaning the merging of subject and object, so that the product of being seen being the divine love in which is viscerally felt. Like in the most practical of examples, when one feels seen by another, there's a deep sense of love that emerges. Now we move to the core of this love, where we see the unification of subject-object, in which brings this love perpetually within ourselves, within our own being, where the love of God's source is seen as the perpetual movement of all things and all moments. Eternity is realized, and thus the divine love of the eternal nature, or eternal co-creation, is realized. And so coming to see this is not some ecstatic, orgasmic bliss that leaves one in the clouds. It's actually a very normal, natural peace that emerges. And this peace starts to dissolve away the tendencies of addictive nature. And yet, in the same light, the psyche and the mind and the etches that are done within the egoic patterning can still fight, or can still look to perpetuate itself, look to stay alive on a certain level, like a program or a virus that's looking to stay alive, fearful of its own demise, fearful of no longer existing. But in truth, it's still only just an echo. It's only really been an echo. So it's never actually existed independently of anything else. It's only been the product of the echo of the movements of false nature. And so uprooting this addictive pattern now, and where we see even the most subtle ways in which attention is looked for or grasped at to give some reinforcement of one's self of existence, or one's sense of desiring or fulfillment of love, deservingness of love, worthiness of love. This is all illusionary and healed now. And so we look to see the most subtle dimensions of self here, where the unworthiness of love, the unworthiness of surviving freely, of being provided for, being cared for. This is the most subtle ways in which this is pushed away, or the most subtle ways in which the pains of not having any of these things, or not believing, or not knowing that these are the inherent abundance and the inherent nature of oneself. This is what also is being healed now. So the reformulation of this on all levels of the patterning, all levels of self, we rest in the silence even deeper as it is all being witnessed here.